All right, this is it. I'm not Jeff K, but this is episode 295 of the West Virginia Surf Report podcast. Yeah, so as you can tell, I am not Jeff K. I'm Zipp, producer of the show, and today the personification of the teacher wheeling in the TV on the stand to show everybody a class for the day instead of actually teaching. Yes, Jeff K is on vacation. I think he's in Myrtle Beach. I can't remember. I'm seeing the pictures. He's putting them on Instagram. There was one where he was like really high up looking down on the beach, and I thought he was on like a helicopter or something, and that he's on like the top of a building. I felt very silly on that. But anyway, he asked me to guest host, and it's been a while since I guest hosted, actually. For a while, I thought maybe I had said something inappropriate and I had been canceled or I wasn't getting good feedback, but quite the contrary. I found out that my raccoon story was well received. I can let you know, if you don't know what I'm talking about, the last time I guest hosted, which would have been probably 2 years ago, I killed a raccoon that had gotten into my chicken coop, and it was quite the adventure. I can actually tell you, since then, I've killed way more raccoons. I actually I got the drop on an entire family of them in one of my sheds, and it was a straight-up bloodbath. Anyway, since then, I have actually moved from East Texas, and I am now in the Pacific Northwest, and that's actually going to be kind of what we talk about here today as your substitute, is my physical move from East Texas to the Pacific Northwest. So we moved, but I mean this in the literal sense, like the road trip, physically getting my car up there, because I got one of those like moving pod trailers, because I was looking at the map and I was like, I am not pulling a trailer or driving a U-Haul for 35 straight hours through mountains. I was just like, no. But I do have animals, and the easiest way to move them was in the car, and the car also had to get moved itself. So essentially it was me and my friend and my dog and our cats. And when I say friend, it's an actual friend of mine came up with us to help us move. That's not like a term for my husband. My husband flew up on his own a couple days after the fact. So anyway, we're on a road trip. We have to go 2,300 miles from East Texas to Tacoma, Washington. We're going to do it over the course of about 2 days with a stop in Denver. Thankfully, I can tell you the end part first. Nothing too eventful happened. Everybody made it there safely. We didn't have any malfunctions or any wrecks or anything like that. I did get pulled over. We'll talk about that in a bit. But as far as the crew is concerned, well, we got the dog Yuri. And she's a Great Pyrenees, and I found her she was living in the parking lot of the job I used to have. And when I found her, she was this disgusting mutt. She just had natty hair. We thought she was super old because she was so scrawny. And anyway, we find out that she's like a purebred puppy, and she just looked like shit because she'd been living on the street for a long time. And so anyway, she's humongous now. She's 110 pounds. I think she's a lap dog. And she had pretty much the whole center of the car to herself. Thankfully, she loved every moment of being on the car trip. I'm going to send pictures of her sleeping so Jeff can put it on the website. And then the cats, I was really worried about the cats because I've got two Maine Coons. So one of them's about 21 pounds, and the other one's about 12 pounds. And pretty much jammed them in a large dog kennel with like a bed and a temporary litter box, and they sat in the SUV. And really, like that, with that get up, and then like I packed shit all around their cage, so they had plenty of room. Nothing happened with the animals. They were all very well behaved. We had no misadventures. So for people who get anxiety about animals being in distress, you don't have to worry about that because everybody had a great trip. With the exception of the dog peed on the car seat once, which thankfully I put a bunch of like mats down and stuff for just that occasion. And that was because when we drove through some of the more barren parts of our beloved country, the dog just didn't understand that there's no grass. We'd be walking down the side of the road in like Wyoming, and I'm like, there's no grass here, dog. Like, grass is in the sense of it. So get to peeing on this dust, or whatever. And she ended up having an accident. But other than that, everything went really well with the dogs, with the animals. Now, let's see. All right, so we departed in Texas. Now, here's the thing about it's a ball bus. If you're not familiar with driving through Texas, it takes almost all day to get from one side of it to the other. So the way we left early Wednesday morning, and we were going to drive from East Texas to Denver. We were going to stay the night in Denver at a friend's house, and then wake up the next day, go about lunch, and drive through the night to get there Friday to move in, at noon, whenever we could meet the apartment people. Excuse me as I snort into the microphone. The thing that sucks about this journey is that, the first leg of it, almost all of it is in Texas. And so once you get from like past Fort Worth going towards the west, Texas is just kind of like the stereotype. It's like an Acme, not quite like Wile E. Coyote, red deserts and stuff, but there's literal tumbleweeds, like actual tumbleweeds tumble about in front of you because of just there's nothing blocking them. There's nothing in the way. So the first day of the drive really sucked because like I've made the drive from where I lived in East Texas to like Dallas, Fort Worth 1,000 times. So I've seen that. And then you drive through just the most boring fucking places in Texas you could ever imagine, where I didn't grow up in that part of Texas. I'm not really familiar with that part of Texas, but if you're not, it's the part of Texas where if you know the show King of the Hill, Boomhauer, the one who talks real fast, they talk like that. Like that's like Boomhauer is making fun of people who talk in kind of like the northwestern part of Texas. I don't know why they talk like that. They certainly have nothing to do, so I don't know why they talk so fast. They've got nowhere to be. But anyway, and as I'm going through this, I'm doing a scratch-off challenge to myself, which was just something I actually did before Jeff K got me roped into his nonsense. Where when I went on road trips, I used to always get, scratch tickets. So I get some in Fort Worth. I didn't win, whatever. We get to New Mexico, and I knew based on the map we weren't going to be in New Mexico very long, so I wasn't expecting very much. But this is not the part where they filmed Breaking Bad, because there was, there was nothing to it. Nothing to it to the point where I didn't even have to make a stop for gas because I filled up on the border. I did because I wanted to get aforementioned scratch ticket, and they just didn't have it. And then they were like, yeah, nobody around here is going to have scratch tickets. And I thought, isn't that like a huge poverty and despair thing? Like, isn't that where I would expect in the most desolate parts of Texas that I've been, they have gambling, So you're telling me that this place is so depressed that the people don't even gamble. And they were like, yeah, you're going to have to like go way into the state to find a place that will do that. And I thought, well, that's silly. So my whole gimmick immediately was ruined because I couldn't get a ticket through New Mexico. Anyway, was it beautiful? I mean, it is in the sense of the same way that like it looks exactly like that part of Texas. So then we get to Colorado. Now things start to get the road starts to get very windy, and we go to Denver. We stay at my friend's house. It's very uneventful, except for the fact that the Pyrenees is 110 pounds and just straight up getting bullied by their 8-pound, some kind of rat terrier thing. Absolutely embarrassing. Just completely embarrassing. It's like, why do I have this much dog? Like, what is the point of having you if you're going to be run around, chased in fear by something smaller than the cats? I was like, the cats that I have are bigger than this dog. Anyway. Colorado, beautiful place. Like Colorado, actually, when we moved, I guess Colorado is where we took a detour on the road trip. I guess we can take a detour on the story. And so we ended up moving because my husband and I, we've been living out in a rural area for a while, and that's where we kind of thought we wanted to live. And then it just, we want to start a family, and we'll just say the neighborhood wasn't as friendly as we thought. Granted, I brought some of that onto myself. I ran for office. That was a whole fiasco and an adventure in and of itself. But we finally, oh goodness, hold on, my recorder just froze. We still recording? Yep, we are. Okay. So sorry if there was a little pause there. Yeah, essentially the neighborhood just wasn't as friendly as it used to be a couple of years ago. I don't know if that's just like how it always was, and just like doing something as prominent as running for office has like brought it all to the surface. I don't know if it's just because the economy's bad and people start to get kind of more hateful and stuff. I don't know, but it definitely was not good for the long term of wanting to start a gay family. I mean, you're talking about, like, unironically, I had a neighbor who flew a flag, not like a flag off a house, like a flag pole with like lights and everything. That was like the Trump, with like Trump's face on a Rambo body with like a machine gun. It's a very a lot of the stereotypes were true, and we just thought, and not to be too much of a sob story, but we had a moment where we were out in the town and we were with our dog, and people were like not letting their children come up to us and play with the dog because we're gay. I mean, they were obviously grabbing their children and like keeping them away from us. And we know what I mean. We get a lot of dirty looks. We're used to that. And that was kind of we were like, we can't raise a child here, So anyway, that's how we ended up on this journey. So now we're in Colorado. We wake up. The dog has absolutely humiliated me. It's my friend's. My friend's got this beautiful house. I'm totally jealous of it. Sorry, now I'm thinking about that stupid dog. Anyway, we get back on the road and we go to Wyoming. Now, if you get kind of this, when you're doing this road trip, it's when you're going from Texas, New Mexico, it's a lot of nothing. And then you get to Colorado and it's very beautiful because, you're near like the Rockies and everything. So you get this kind of temporary retreat and the views are beautiful. Then you go back to Wyoming and it's all back to nothing. So our trip didn't really take us through. Did we go to Cheyenne? I can't remember. If you've ever been to Cheyenne, it's the capital of Wyoming. I had to look for the Capitol building because it's so small. It looks like the size of a library where I grew up. It's a different part of the world. Anyway, did I gamble in Wyoming? I didn't, because they don't have scratch-off tickets. They only have the lottery. So I thought, well, I'm not going to buy a fucking lottery ticket. So anyway, we drive through Wyoming. I have to give them, I do have to say, like, it's barren as it is. When the sun is setting, gorgeous. It was a beautiful kind of stereotypical, I always call it like Call My Dad sunsets. Like, oh my God. That was beautiful. The wind gusts were a little ridiculous because it starts I guess it's because there's nothing to block the wind for miles and miles. The wind just is like super strong. You can and as you get deeper and deeper into like the prairie land, it goes from like, hey, look out for wind gusts, and then it's like, hey, like severe wind gusts, and then it's like there's some parts where the signs, the speed limit signs are like electronic, and the speed limit changes based on the wind. So you'll drive through it one day and it'll be 80, and then you'll drive the next day it'll be 50 because of the wind. I hate driving through the wind; it's miserable. We go from Wyoming. We go from Wyoming into Utah. Utah, same thing. We're not going through. We're unfortunately not going through it during the day, so we're not seeing any of the actual like beauty it has to offer. Because I have heard that Utah, Mormons aside and all that, very like naturally beautiful state. I will be completely honest with you. If it were not for the Utah Jazz, I don't think I would know anything about the state of Utah. Virtually nothing. So anyway, we skimmed by Salt Lake City, didn't go in it, like the highway didn't take us that way. We went through Ogden, and I kept thinking to myself, why do I know Ogden, Utah? And it was like bugging me, and then I was like, oh, and I think it's like an IRS thing. I was like, have I written like tax checks to Ogden, Utah? Is that why I remember that? No gambling at all in Utah. So I walked in and asked for a scratch off, and they had to hit me with a belt by law. So no, there is no gambling in Utah, like lottery tickets, dog racing, nothing. So far my whole thing is like completely in the fucking toilet. Oh yeah, so in Colorado I got 2 tickets going in, both lost. And then the second day, I got 2 more tickets because that's part of the stupid rules. Is if wherever you sleep, you have to get it going in and going out because it's like technically two different road trips, or you're cursed. I don't know. 2 tickets in Fort Collins, Colorado, and then I forgot about them, and so I have to mail them in. I've never done that, and it's only like $10 because they won. But I kind of feel like a loser because I'm like mailing a thing from one side of the country to, or like 1,000 miles. Like, can you send me $10, please? Like, I'd really appreciate that. So anyway, yes, like I said, with Wyoming and Utah, it didn't happen. We go to Idaho. Idaho is another one of those states where I knew nothing about them except potatoes. I have a friend who's a podcaster who is out in Idaho Falls. The journey didn't take me out there. If I wasn't carrying the damn cats, I might have taken it to go there and make it a 3-day trip and stayed with him. But yeah, I know nothing about Idaho. Pretty state though. Going through the mountains. What was interesting is when you leave the mountains in Idaho, it's like leaving an amusement park because it just ends. It's just like you get to you go through this shitty fucking exhausting in the sense of it's like once you've been driving for like 30 hours, having to drive through the windy mountain pass, even when it's lit and not inclement weather, you're like, it's exhausting because you're having to pay attention to every turn. And then so when you get off of them in Idaho, and again, it all blended together, so I don't even remember what mountain range this was. It like dumps you like like a little exit ramp, and it's like, okay, you left the mountains, now you're back in the prairie. Like, here you go. There's a McDonald's and a rest stop. Make sure you use the restroom because there's nothing for like 50 miles. And then your ears even pop as you're going down. It does. It feels like you're like leaving a ride. So Idaho had lottery tickets, lost. So anyway, then we move on to Oregon. By this point, I've been up for a while. I've been up for at least 20 hours. And I had caught in a little bit of a nap. So I'm actually doing good as far as like sleep deprivation goes. We didn't have any problems with that because we took turns driving and stuff. But we're starting to grind, I'm saying. You're looking at this point where it's, 30 hours in the car, you're starting to get really tired. Plus, I'd been like packing the house up and everything. So when I'm in Oregon, I get pulled over by a freaking cop. And it's because I was actually cutting off the highway going through like a residential neighborhood into another highway. And when I say through, it wasn't like a literal neighborhood. It was going to be like 9 miles through kind of more residential area to kick to a different highway. And I just wasn't paying attention to the speed. I mean, and I think that's what got me out of the ticket because the guy asked, he's like, why were you speeding? And I said, I'm used to being on the highway. I just wasn't paying attention. And so anyway, he gave me a warning, and we actually talked. It was weird. He was like, because I think he could tell we were like moving. And, he asked like why we were moving, and I just told him everything, gay this and gay that. And, really, I do have a secret to get out of whenever you get pulled over by the police. Like a really surefire way to make sure you get out of it safe is to be white. So anyway, he was nice. He gave me a warning, sent me on my way, just said, welcome to the Pacific Northwest and follow the fucking law when you're here because you're not in Texas anymore. And I said, will do. So anyway, we went through the rest of Oregon, and because of that, I didn't stop. And so I didn't get a scratch-off ticket in Oregon. And then we went to Washington, got the scratch-off tickets, and lost. So the whole, from that perspective, failure. Like, from the scratch-off ticket aspect of it, complete failure. But the journey itself, because now I'm in my new house, and as I'm recording this, we've only been in here less than a week. We're still getting like furniture, and our moving pod finally came, so we've got the boxes and we're getting moved in. So I'll keep Jeff updated on how all that goes, especially you guys out in the Pacific Northwest, everybody out there listening. I'm in Tacoma. I was funny because at first I was like, should I say Tacoma or should I just say Pacific Northwest? As if I say on Alaska, Texas, where I'm from. That's a town of like 3,000. It's like you could probably find my house from just walking around the town. But then I'm here. I'm like, I don't know if I'll be able to. But yeah, if you're out in the Pacific Northwest, hey, I am actually relatively new to the area. We picked it because, honestly, the weather is very nice compared to where we come from. We know that the rainy season's about to start, so we're getting ourselves ready for that. But I know Jeff doesn't like to get political, but a lot of it is kind of like, just in a nutshell, the future of this country looks like a lot of rights are going to be based at the state level. So we thought, why not start a family at a place that is going to be friendly at the state level to gay people? And that's about all I want to go into on that. But if you are from the Pacific Northwest and you've got things you want to recommend to see around the Puget Sound, in Oregon, up in Canada, like the eastern side of the Washington and all that, hey, send it to Jeff, I guess, or comment on the blog. I don't know. I should have ran over how I was going to do that. But yeah, I'm always down for suggestions. Like I've already got a list it's going to take me forever of things to see that people have recommended. If you like me and you want to hear more of what I do, you can go over to nrqpodcast.com. I host the No Redeeming Qualities podcast. You can find that every Wednesday morning. Right now we are doing Halloween stuff. We just did our 5th annual Spooktober movie marathon where Bob is my co-host. We sit down and we watch an entire horror franchise in one sitting. In the past, we have done Leprechaun, Hellraiser, and Halloween. Last year, we did an anthology idea where we did a bunch of Stephen King stories, and this year we did A Nightmare on Elm Street, and it was a damn good time. So I think everybody's going to enjoy it. You can find that at nrqpodcast.com or anywhere you can find the No Redeeming Qualities podcast. Jeff also puts a bunch of very generous links up in all his stuff. So anyway, thanks very much, Jeff, for this one's a little short. I'm sorry, but thanks for letting me host, Jeff. It's like I've made the comparison to before. It's like Joan Rivers hosting for Johnny Carson, or Adam Sandler hosting for David Letterman. Anytime you want me to come on up here, just let me know. And also if people liked it, we'll keep coming back. If people hate me, I won't come back. I'll be honest. I'm a little tired this morning, so I'm a little lower energy than I normally am. But I really enjoy getting to be your substitute Jeff for the week, and I believe Jeff is going to be back shortly from his adventures. I don't know when something for the Patreon is coming. Take that up with Jeff. Anyway, how does he end the thing? How does he end the show? I've listened to 10,000 fucking episodes of the show, and how does he? All right, this is it. No, that's how he starts the show. Oh, I'm making an ass out of myself by saying this out loud while people are listening. Anyway, Jeff will be back. Since then, I've killed way more raccoons. I actually I got the drop on an entire family of them in one of my sheds.